welcome to another Design Clips here at W+9. This is Dawn, and in today's video I have several cards to share with you featuring our new Tossed Florals background die. Now this is probably one of my favorite products from this release, and I'm going to be pairing it with another one of my favorites, the Bold Banner Greetings Stamps and Dies. Now I didn't get to give this set enough love when it came out, so I'm really excited to be able to remedy that today. But again, the star of the show today is the Tossed Florals background die. Now this die is very intricate and has some very delicate parts. Die cutting it through 80 pound, even 100 pound, you should have no problem. However, today I'm going to be using the Distressed Watercolor cardstock by Ranger, and this is quite thick. So I'm going to show you some tips that I use personally when die cutting some of these more intricate dies from thicker cardstock. Now I'm using my workhorse Big Shot. I've had this for probably a good 10 years. So some of the pressure is going to be a little uneven. Now I like to lay the die face up, and this way I can check and see any areas that didn't cut all the way through on the first pass. I like to put the plate at an angle, and this gives more die under the roller bars at any given time so that the pressure stays a little more even. So I'll run it through and then back the other way, and then I will check to see if there's any areas that haven't cut all the way through. And you can see here right in the center, there are some areas that didn't cut through. So then I'm going to turn the die about 45 degrees, and then I'm going to run it through again. Now I didn't have any problem running the 80 pound Nina Solar White through with this die, and I even was able to cut our 100 pound cardstock with no problem. But again, this is a very intricate die, and sometimes you have to just shim it a little bit and it'll cut through on the parts that it doesn't. Again, this is one of the reasons I like to have the die face up. That way I don't have to worry about the die shifting at all and miscutting. So I had one little area still that didn't want to cut through, so I added a piece of typing paper over top, and this time it cut the rest of the way through. Now, if you have a Gemini, you shouldn't have any problems at all. From what I understand, that thing is amazing, and I need to get one. So to get it started, I like to use my piercing tool, and I will use the release holes in the back of the die to get it started. And then I will just slowly start working the paper out of the die itself. Again, you'll want to be careful here because some of the parts are, again, very delicate, and you don't want to rip it. I like to use my piercing tool to knock out all the negative spaces. I hold it down closer to my work surface, and then I just push on the area with my piercing tool there. Some of those areas are a little tight, so it helps to have that piercing tool. You can just get right up in there in the edge, poke, and it'll just fall right out. Now, I love using this die just strictly tone on tone for a nice subtle background, but what I really love doing is coloring in these individual little floral images, either with Copic or with watercolor. So obviously we're using watercolor paper today, so we're going to be doing a little bit of watercoloring, and for that I'm going to be using ZIGs. I wanted something really bright and vibrant, and ZIGs fit the bill. I don't get to use these very often because I'm usually more of a muted color kind of girl, but I wanted to take advantage of their vibrancy. So I've pulled out a couple of different color groups here. We're going to do 4 different versions in all. And for this first one here, I'm using blue, dark pink, bright yellow, and olive green. And I am quite literally just scribbling a little color into each of the areas and then pulling it out with that aqua blender pen. I'm not being overly careful. I'm not even thinking too much about where I'm putting the colors. What I am doing is any one type of flower, I'm coloring it the same color throughout the entire design. So for example, the little tulip-like flowers, I colored one of them yellow, so I colored them all yellow. And then I'm going to go through and do the same thing for the rest of the background and the rest of the elements. And I'm going to be lazy, and I'm not even going to color in this entire background. I'm going to color in the main flowers and the main leaves, and then a few of the other little tiny flowers in the background. And that's mainly just to distribute the color evenly wherever I might need an extra shot of one color or the other. I've laid down a scratch piece of paper underneath. That's A, to catch any of the ink that I might accidentally scribble off the edge of the die, and B, I can use it to clean off my aqua pen in between colors or just to remove any excess color if it gets built up over time. Sometimes that aqua pen can pick up quite a bit of that color and carry it. So whenever I need to start fresh, I'll just clean it off and then I don't have too much ink on that brush. Once I had everything colored in that I wanted to, I went ahead and set it aside to dry, and then I started working on the next one. Now I told you we made several, so the next one that we made I used a different color combination, and for this one I used deep blue, green, wine red, and bright yellow. I actually really love the way this color combination turned out. It turned out so much prettier than I thought it would. When I put these colors together, they actually had almost like a primary color look when you were looking at the ends of the zig markers. But once you blended these out with water, I fell in love with this color combination. Now, although all of these cards are based off the same concept, they're all a little different. So for this one, I wanted to use a little bit of some Perfect Pearls water to spread the color around. So what I did was I just threw a little bit of Perfect Pearls on my mat and then added a little bit of water, and that's what I'm going to use to watercolor with now instead of just the clean water. Now for this one, I decided to go with a color combination of yellow, light green, carmine red, and cobalt blue. Adding the Perfect Pearls to the watercolor mix really gave all of these colors this very metallic shine. You can see how they transform here once I lay the color down. Once I add that Perfect Pearls water solution to it, you can really watch that color transform, and it just becomes incredibly metallic and has this gorgeous sheen to it. Now once they were all dry and before I put them together, I did take a second to use my piercing tool to poke out any of the background pieces I may have missed and any extra little chads that I wanted to poke out. I didn't bother with taking all of them out, but I did take out quite a few. Now, as I mentioned, for two of the cards, I wanted them to be more built up, almost like a chipboard-like appearance. So I've die cut a couple of extra of those tossed floral backgrounds from Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock, and I'm going to glue them one on top of the other using a Martha Stewart glue pen. And I'm just making sure to get the edges really well, and then any areas that aren't attached to another flower that are hanging free that might get caught and lift. I'm going to lay that right on top of the other one, and because I'm using a liquid adhesive, I have a second or two to wiggle it to make sure that it's properly lined up. And then what I like to do is use my bone folder to burnish the entire background to make sure that I have full adhesion and that it's really going to be fully adhered across the entire background. And then I'll repeat the same steps for the watercolored pieces, and I'll adhere those on top of my thicker base here. Now we're going to finish each one a little bit differently, but we're using all the same supplies, so I'm just going to show you this one. I'm going to be using the Bold Banner Greetings die and stamp set. I'm going to be layering two of these banners together, and I'm going to be doing a white heat embossed sentiment on the top banner there. And I wanted to show you a little trick for holding your dies in place if you don't have a MISTI, or if you're like me and you just didn't feel like pulling it out. I like to tape it down to my work surface sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and treat that with my anti-static powder tool, ink my sentiment up in Versamark, and then I'll be heat embossing that with Hero Art's white embossing powder. For this one, I'm using the Love and Joy from the Bold Banner Grading stamp set. I thought that this, I don't know, the color combination along with that Dove Gray cardstock, I just thought it would make a great wedding card, especially like a spring or summer wedding. I'm using a little bit of tape runner to adhere that top banner to the lower banner, and then I'm offsetting it just a bit so you can see that white. It's eventually going to live right here in the center, but first I need to glue this panel down to my card base, and again I'm going to use that same Martha Stewart glue pen. In fact, this time I think I'm using a little bit different one. The other one was like the ballpoint pen. This one is more like a marker tip, like a paint marker tip, but it's a thin one. And I actually preferred this one because I didn't have to keep pressing like I did with the ballpoint pen one. This one, the glue seemed to flow easier onto the tip of the marker. Again, I'm going to use that same trick, burnishing with the bone folder. I just really feel like this helps ensure there's a really good bond between the adhesive and the paper. To apply the banner, I'm going to use a little 3M foam tape, and I'm just going to adhere that right in the center. I love the way these products make pulling together cards so quick and easy. So let's take a look at all of the cards that I created from those watercolored panels. Now this first one, the colors are so bold and vibrant, I knew they would look great on a black card base. Again, I die cut 2 banners, watercolored one, slightly offset them, and stamped the "You Are So Lovely" sentiment. For this next one, I used a nautical navy card base. Again, cut 2 banners, heat embossed "Lovely and Kind" on the nautical navy banner, and then adhered them to the center. Really don't need much else, it's such a great design. For this one, this is the one we used the Perfect Pearls as our water solution, and you can see all of that shimmer and shine. I wanted to keep this one soft and airy, very springy, so I actually cut, again, 2 banners, added a watercolor wash over it, and then split it between the left and the right side. Then I added a simple "Hello Lovely" and added a few tiny sparkling clear sequins in the background. Because we bumped that die cut up with those 2 extra layers, it's actually flush and I don't have to worry about them getting knocked off. And then finally we have the one we created on camera. I think this is my favorite. There's just something about dove gray and white. It's just such a classy combo. I don't know. I think it's my favorite. How about you? I'd love to know which one is your favorite. Leave it in the comments below. Are you a soft and airy or a bold and bright fan? I hope you enjoyed today's video. Remember, if you have any questions about the projects or the supplies used, check the description box below where you'll find a link to the blog post associated with this video. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!